Welcome back. Now we switch gears to look at the states in Nigeria. How do the states fare? The National Bureau of Statistics says as of 2018, the internally generated revenue of the largest number of states was still very meager. In all, the NBS noted that all the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, generated a total of about 1.7 trillion naira in fiscal year of 2018. Considering the financial obligations confronting them, and that amount is grossly insufficient, even with the monthly allocations from the center. About 3 years ago, no fewer than 26 states owed workers' salaries. Not only that, social infrastructure in the states is in tatters, primarily because governments depend morbidly on the money being shared from the crude oil revenue. So what are the states doing? What can they, which is the low-hanging fruit they have in the various states for them to pick up and run with?
And raise their IGR.
What comparative advantage do they have? So here to help us understand what's going on, we have the Senior Special Assistant to the Ondo State Governor on Agric and Agribusiness, Pastor Akin Olotu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm delighted to be here.
We're going to have two guests from our Abuja studio. Tavia Akase, who's the Chief Press Secretary to the Benue State Governor, and Odilim Emegbara, a development economist. They will be joining us shortly in a few minutes. But Dr. Olotu, let's start out with you. You've heard the analysis I put out there today from the NBS, 1.7 trillion altogether.
1.17.
1.17 for the 36 states.
For the 36 states as IGR in 2018. And what's going on?
Grossly inadequate.
Grossly inadequate.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of all the taxation that's going on, it's still inadequate. So what's
I agree with you, but I'm equally happy to say that if you look at the statistics for last month, Ondo State is #1 in terms of the percentage increase in state IGR. Nationwide.
Now, why are the states that way? Is it that there's nothing the states can hold on to?
It's simply over-dependence on fossil fuel. Nobody is thinking. When we had this money, in essence, a state taking 12 billion, taking 14, 15 billion in a month, people concentrated on cosmetic projects. There was no concerted effort to grow the economy, to create wealth, to make the state to be independent of whatever is coming from Abuja. And on monthly basis, people go cap in hand to Abuja, waiting for monthly allocation. So creativity is not there. Thinking out of the box wasn't there. It was just merry, cosmetic investment.
Pastor, we have been hearing for a few years now, and we have been seeing, we've been hearing that our oil reserves are running dry. We have seen the price of oil go down from over $100 to about between $30 and $40. Yeah. I mean, is that not enough light shining brightly for these states to sit down and do something?
Can I just quickly say something?
No. Before you say something, let's hear from the Abuja side. They are there now, so let them tell us why the states have been this way. Tabe, let's start with you. How is it that the states have stayed this way, Mr. Akase?
Sorry, good morning. I didn't get that question very clearly.
The question I asked is, we have statistics from the NBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, saying that the states, all the IGR and all the states put together, came down to about 1.17 trillion naira. And it's been that way throughout the fiscal year of 2018. Why have the states stayed that way, solely dependent on the allocation from the center?
Well, it's this is a problem that requires a lot of thinking and planning to get it right. Perhaps the current governments inherited the problem And a lot of efforts is being put in place to ensure that the IGR of the states, especially in Benue, is being a problem, but the Otoma administration is doing all it can to step up the IGR. And I think that until states of this country look inwards and improve on the IGRs, we would continue to have problems. But a lot is being done in Benue. If you ask me, I will tell you what is being done in Benue to improve.
Okay. We'll come back to look at the breakdown of what's being done in the various states that are represented here. But let me bring in Mr. Wegbara. The states continue to talk about IGR. And if you ask them, most times it's about taxation. They are taxing the people. The businesses are not thriving as much as they should. But basically, that's what they depend on, apart from the pay as you earn tax, and then the company tax and all of that. Is there no other way for the states to generate internal revenue?
Anyway, before I answer your question, if you allow me, let me quickly tell you why the states are where they are today financially and in revenue generation. You have to know that these states were created arbitrarily by the military, and of course, besides that, the constitution makes it difficult for these states to merge when they are not viable. And two, the fiscal centralization that allows everybody else to come to the center and share the money. So it discourages competition and the hard work. Having said that, I will tell you that we need to retool our fiscal and monetary policy to make it easier for states to be a bit independent, and they make it difficult for making Nigeria a dumping ground for foreign-made goods, because the states cannot generate a revenue in isolation. They have to grow the economy, stabilize the economy, modernize the economy before the revenues can be generated. So that's one of the things we have to look into. Are we going to change the constitution so that the states will control the resources in their states, and of course contribute certain percentage to the center, so that the states will work hard. Having said that, I think at the end of the day, the states must diversify their revenue stream. For example, I think that some states will go into food processing like Benue, and ensure that agriculture is actually taken seriously by looking for foreign and local investors and invest in food processing and logistics and things like that. Now, also, states can actually set up hotels, set up schools, set up so many things that will generate revenue for them. But there's a problem here. The problem is that the states are not in control of their securities. So it will be difficult for states to do most of these things when the environment is very, very hostile, when the states are suffering from insecurity. So I don't know which private sector that will just come to these states and invest their money. So that is a problem we have to look into. You know, we have been dragging this problem, thinking that states, of course, unless, but forgive me if I will say this, unless some states become armed robbers and go to the highways and start kidnapping or stealing money from people in order to generate IGR. But the only way you have to do it is to make sure that you have a thriving economy that is inclusive, economy that generates jobs, economy that generates revenue, economy that is also competitive in terms of having a lot of infrastructure investment and infrastructure expansion. We must do these things. If we don't do this, we continue to lie to ourselves.
Back to the question that I asked. It's glaringly obvious now that monies coming from crude oil are going to be dwindling as the years go by. So what is Ondo State doing to ensure that in the face of dwindling revenues coming from the center, they are able to actually generate enough money to look after their needs?
Well, in Ondo State, we are very lucky to have a man that is ready to take decisions in terms of economic decisions, in terms of general development in the state as a whole. As I'm talking to you today, Ondo State, within these 2 years, we now have the biggest cassava ethanol processing factory in the country. A factory that can take 500 metric tons of cassava on daily basis. In that you will know the implication of that in terms of job creation, in terms of IGR, and even in terms of environmental factors as well. So apart from that, we are working on our tree crops. I am convinced beyond all reasonable doubt that if we work on cocoa, we work on our oil palm, we work on rubber, most of these tree crops, that is where Nigeria is having comparative advantage.
Okay, just hold your thoughts. We'll come back to that comparative advantage that we have as per tree crops. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away. Thank you, and welcome back to Sunrise. We're still talking about boosting state economies. Pastor Lotu, you were talking about the comparative advantage that Nigeria has in the form of tree crops, but you were using your state as an example.
Yeah, you will agree with me that until recently, CBN has no window to develop tree crops in this country. Until some of us took it up in Abuja. We thank God there is a window, a credit window for development of tree crops, because there is no amount of grain that you are going to produce in Nigeria that will make you to compete, that will make us to compete effectively with Europe. And there is no amount of livestock we are going to produce here that will make us to compete effectively with Europe. So we said, we made it abundantly clear, and I'm glad the CBN governor is working in that direction. Ondo State has a plan for oil palm city. We are working on it. We have a plan, and we are working on the single cocoa estate that's going to be the biggest in this country, in Juberi, in the state. The project is ongoing. Apart from that, the deep sea port. Ondo State has the deepest location and the longest coastline in the country. The state government is working on this. The Okitipa oil palm mill is back to life. And a lot of this, gradually, before you know it, jobs are being created for our people.
But all of this is the state government handling, right?
No, we are using a PPP approach. What we learned from what Chief Adekunle Ajasin did in the Second Republic, Baba left 11 companies. Wawena Bank, Oluwa Glass Industry, Glass Industry, Okitipa Oil Mill, Nigeria Romania Wood Industry, a lot, 11.
And they're still working?
They are all, they've gone under.
Why?
So, because it was purely government owned.
Okay.
So the approach the present administration is using is a PPP approach. We keep about 20%. We create an enabling environment, facilitate the establishment of the business, and we reserve about 20%, which is good enough for us, where we get IGR from the business.
Okay. Mr. Kase, what is the picture like in your state?
Well, I wasn't able to hear the gentleman there speak very well, but let me tell you that the problem in the states can be tackled. Nigeria as a whole, we need to look beyond oil and return to agriculture. And states also need to do that. Every state of this country is blessed with land and agri potentials. For instance, in Benue, Benue, you know, is an agri state. And before the coming of Governor Samuel Otom, farmers were about 75% of the state's population. And now we are heading towards 80%. Civil servants, about 6%. Private sector employees, about 9%. And traders were more than 10%. But now we have reduced that to 10% because since Otom came on board, he has made farming the hub of Benue State. And a lot of things are being done to improve agriculture in Benue. And so farming is now around 80% of Benue's economy. And this tells that with agriculture, we can get it right. And remember that there was a blending plant, a fertilizer blending plant in Benue State, which was abandoned. And when Otom came on board, he said, look, we have to revive this plant and begin to produce fertilizer in Benue State. And before the reviving of the fertilizer blending plant, the government has been subsidizing fertilizer for farmers. For the first time, we began at 38% subsidy, and now we are heading, the government is now paying more for fertilizer, a bag of fertilizer, than the farmer. For instance, one bag is now going for 8,000, and the government is paying 4,500. The farmer is paying 4,000 naira. That shows that the government of Benue State is interested in helping Benue farmers to improve their production. And then the government has established soybeans cleaning and packaging plants in some local governments. This may be small scale at the beginning, but we hope that as time goes on, in the next 4 years, where the government of Samuel Otom is taking that to the next level, and we believe that we will get it right, where the government of Benue is establishing orange juice processing factories. We've done one in Oshongu. We've done some in Taka. And
Mr. Akase, we need to interrupt you here. The thing about what you talked about, the investment the government is doing in fertilizer, and now you're setting up orange processing plants and all of that. Let's swing to Mr. Egbara. Mr. Egbara, in looking at all of this, the two states that are here on set with us have talked about what they are doing. Is that enough to bring in the, as I say, bring in the juice? To bring in the money?
Anyway, I said earlier, I will repeat, these states can be viable when they discover that they're on their own and they mind their businesses. Two, these states can be viable when they discover that it's the electorate that determines who wins the election, not by rigging. For example, I'm not supposed to say it, but I will say it. Look at River State. The governor loves the people more than the people love themselves. And he has done so much for them. That kind of passion we need across the country by the state governors. Two, I think that we need to review our fiscal policy, especially our trade policy, to ensure that import substitution industrialization is what is our next policy. That is Nigeria first, because China and America are fighting a trade and the currency war. So let's benefit from that by making sure that the dumping of processed food products cannot be allowed in Nigeria, so that states like Benue could migrate from just farming to food processing, because that's where the value is, and that's where more jobs will be created, and that's where jobs created will be actually high-paying jobs. So I think these things must be done. But also, as I said, government must now come with e-elections, e-voting, so that the electorate will determine who wins election, because it is only when that is done that the state governors will be highly responsible and highly responsive to the needs of the states.
Abdullim, let me just stay with you now. The two representative states that we have with us in the studio this morning both talk extensively about agriculture, but especially in Benue State, we know what is happening. The issue of the killer herdsmen. We know that many farmers cannot go to their farms in the north. So what should these states then do? Because it looks like it's only agriculture that they have recourse to.
That's a fantastic question, but everybody knows the question. It's the problem that nobody wants to address the question. You see, that's why I said earlier that in an environment that's very hostile to businesses, nobody will invest. We need to allow the states to own their own policing. They must be in charge of their own policing. This issue that if you give it to states, they will become monsters and the anarchists. I don't believe in that. There must be a system in place that will checkmate what the state police does, that will be nationally designed to ensure that the professionalism is the basis of which they operate. We must allow the states to become the chief security accounting officers of their states. And you cannot centralize security and then you want the states to perform. So I am of the opinion, and I'm supporting state policing. In the United States, where I lived for 12 years, even universities have their own police. Communities have their own police. They are purely doing their work to ensure that they create peace and security within the environments. Why should we have a federal system that centralizes the fiscal system, centralizes policing, centralizes everything? So we must, to be fair to ourselves, we are going to go forward to allow states to own their own policing so that the chief security accounting officer becomes the governor and not from Abuja gets order.
Okay. Pastor Lotu, again, back to the question of agriculture and comparative advantage. You talked about your tree crops. You also talked about the cassava processing plant, ethanol. There are those who will be wondering, okay, you have this largest plant in Ondo. What about, how do you get the produce in? Are there roads to bring the produce in? Because one of the challenges that some of these farmers have is the produce getting spoiled before they are able to transport them. Or do you have off-takers set up by government that go there to pick up the state?
It is a big revolution in the state. I can say that emphatically. Like the last speaker just said, we are looking at the entire value chain. We are looking at every link: production, transportation, processing, semi-processing, and finished processing. So it's the entire value chain that we are taking, that we've taken into consideration in Ondo State. Not just that. In the state today, government has made adequate arrangement. We've been discussing with the headsmen on the issue of security. And we made it abundantly clear to them that the last presidential election in the state, that the vote of President Muhammadu Buhari came down drastically because of the activities of the headsmen. We were able to pass this across to them. And generally, in Ondo State, we are equally looking at other crops, not just the tree crops. We are equally thinking about the livestock. The Southwest alone, the beef market in the Southwest is 1.2 billion. Lagos.
What do you mean 1.2 million
1.2 billion
heads or what?
Naira.
It's worth. Okay.
Yes, that's the market value of beef in the Southwest.
Daily or
on daily basis. Because you slaughter an average of 12,000. Lagos is 6,000. The other states you have, Lagos is 6,000. The other states you have put together 6,000. That is 12 at an average, and it's even above that. Not just 100,000 naira. So you are looking at 1.2 billion naira being spent on beef on daily basis. So we are equally thinking about that in the state. That okay, what can we do? The market in Lagos, the market in other part of the country. But the government is bringing back Akuno Cattle Ranch. We have investors from Philadelphia in America. We are already working on site. Akuno Cattle Ranch is coming back to life, and by the special grace of God, is going to bring about a new dimension in beef production in the country.
Okay. Mr. Kase, I'd like your comment regarding this tweet from Festus Akimboiwa. He says that if state governors in each region work together to build an integrated railway network, many of our states will become buoyant.
The railway?
That is an integrated railway system.
Oh, yes,
Sorry?
yes.
System, yeah.
Okay, yes. I think that's a wonderful suggestion. And beyond that, my colleague here talked about rejigging the policies of government, the monetary policy, policy on security, policy on the general economy. I mean, recently, the National Agric Council met in Owerri, and the Benue State delegation made a proposal that, look, we have to look beyond just bringing equipment to assist farmers. When we want to bring in, we want to give subsidy to farmers, the federal government should consider the fact that some of this equipment may be too big for the smallholder farmers. So what do? Look at the equipment that a smallholder farmer will be able to acquire. And this recommendation was adopted by the National Agri Council in Owerri. And so I think it's a step forward. If we begin to look at such policies being amended to suit the current day Nigerian situation, we'll be getting it right. He talked about security, and I agree that without adequate security, we'll not be making any headway. So that suggestion that the states in one region can come together and look at the road network and even rail to be able to network and have food produce from the rural communities to the urban areas, or even have buyers from urban areas go to the communities to buy. That will make a lot of, it will improve the overall GDP of the country, and that should be the way to go. In Benue State, for instance, the blueprint of Governor Samuel Otom has on it the establishment of a rail around Benue State, which links the northern part of the state to the southern part. We are hoping that in this second term, given the requisite funds, given the needed funds, the government of the state will be able to begin work towards the establishment of that rail. And if we are able to network with Nasarawa State, with Kogi State, with Taraba State and Enugu State, why not? This is possible, and I wholly agree that this can be done. Okay,
Mr. Ewegbara, real quick, we're almost running out of time. Let's look at the role peer review mechanism can play in sorting all of this out. The Governors Forum, they all sit down there. What do you think they should be telling themselves to get their economies going?
This is a beautiful question, because peer review mechanism is a system that creates competition, but healthy competition. But let me add to what he said, because it's very important. One of the things I suggested for one of the presidential candidates was to quickly transform geopolitical zones into economic zones, because that's what has happened in most countries in the world. If you go to China, economic zones are what are actually creating big GDPs for the regions, and the same thing happens in the United States. So we must allow states to come together and form economic region. When they form that economic region, they take advantage of their comparative advantage, and also the investors can come and discover that the market either is a raw material market or consumer market that is clustered around that region. So that is very important. But let me add another thing in the issue of peer review mechanism you said, because if these states governors come together and they identify areas of interest and where they can work together with the other states, they can actually pool resources, investors together to come and help them actually create a bigger market and a bigger industrial outlet that they can. Two states can come together or three states can come together and establish an industrial park in one of the states, and all of them take advantage of it. Let me add to, before I go quickly, let me add to Ondo. Ondo is the richest state in this country, but nobody knows, and I don't know whether the state knows it. First, Ondo has the largest or the longest coastal line in West Africa. Two, Ondo has bitumen that is the second largest in the world. Three, Ondo has 10% of oil in this country, and also Ondo has timber that is one of the largest in Nigeria. So I don't know why Ondo should not focus on developing these things instead of mere agriculture, because if Ondo could develop these, although the federal government may not allow it, but if Ondo could focus on developing the coastal line, it will take the business from Lagos. And if Ondo should focus on its timber and timber processing, Ondo will be richer than most of the states.
The Ondo State man here, please respond to it. But
1 minute.
First, Akinbewa says, Ondo State government is thinking about investing in cannabis for export, which is great. Canadians are promoting edible cannabis in their country.
We were in Thailand a couple of days ago because of this cannabis of a thing. And we discovered people are just making unnecessary noise. Ondo State today is the largest producer of cannabis in Africa. And this thing is being done illegally. So what the governor is trying to do is to look at the economic benefit that will be derived from this. The governor is a senior advocate of Nigeria. is conscious of the Geneva Convention of 1961. We are conscious of the fact that cannabis is prohibited in the country. But we cannot take away the fact, like Obafemi Awolowo says, you can only abuse me, you cannot fault my fact. The Bible says my people perish because of lack of knowledge. We have gone to Thailand, we have seen what is going on there, we have seen a whole region that has been devastated because of, as a result of the use of opium. We have seen a whole region that has been taken over by prostitution in the time past, completely turned around. And the people there now are gainfully employed in businesses that are very are friendly economically, environmentally.
And you think this is possible?
Yes, so very possible.
All right, thank you very much. We really have to go now. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Tave Akase, CPS to Benue State Governor, and Mr. Odzinime, who joined us from our Abuja studio. And here in Lagos, we had Pastor Akin Olotu, SSA to Ondo State Governor on Agric and Agric Business. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Please join us again.